In hopefully about 24 hours, we'll have about 225 Cornish rock cross meat chickens in this barn for meat production. Let's go in the barn. I'll show you what we've done to get ready to start a new flock of meat chickens for poultry. Before we even open the doors, I want to point out something that we pay attention to around the barn. Look at the bottom of this barn door. We've actually boarded in with just some scrap lumber a stop gap there so that there's not a gap under the doorway for predators to try to gain access into the building. If you're raising meat chickens, starting any kind of chicks, you want to make sure that you've closed up any and all holes you can find that could be places where predators could get in your building. This is our little Dotson Tanner, and he loves going to the barn, loves checking on chickens. He's probably curious if there's chickens in there. He also likes to go in there and hunt around and see if he can flush out any mice. So hopefully he doesn't find any today, but we're all ready for meat chickens on the other side of the door. So the first thing you see here is how we've set up the brooder space for our chicks. The entire floor space in here is 30 foot by 30 foot. It's actually sized to start, grow, and finish a flock of about 400 Cornish rock cross meat chickens, up to 450 Cornish rock cross meat chickens. We prefer to give them floor space of about 2 square foot per bird. It'll be so exciting to get the chickens here and let y'all see them and see them in their brooder space, but we'll use this barn to actually start them in the brooder space and then grow them and finish them all right here under this one roof. So at some point, the extra items that are currently being stored in the barn, like the four-wheelers and the pressure washer and the tiller, those will have to be removed, and we'll actually just expand this space that we've given them. So for a flock of 200 to 225 birds, if we give them half of the floor space in the barn, that'll be enough room for them to finish on. But we won't give them all that room all at one time. We'll gradually increase the amount of space they have. So actually the first time we expand their space, we'll probably just get another one of our yellow livestock transport crates off of the wall there, and we'll just add it here, for instance, and extend this out one more crate length, and then we'll just be able to move that temporary wall barrier over. So we'll just expand it by a crate length, and then we'll just monitor the birds and how much room they need. But shelter is really critical component of raising your meat birds. It doesn't have to be in a barn like this. You could use a chicken tractor. You could have the goal of raising them on pasture, but regardless, they're still going to have to be started really in a confined enclosed shelter, because brooding chicks requires a lot of protection for the chicks from predators, from weather fluctuations, and it also requires being able to target some ambient temperature control into their space, because little chicks that are just hatched, when you move them in, they really want it to be about 95 degrees Fahrenheit around their area, and then they want it about 5 degrees cooler than that each week. And so we only raise our meat birds out to about 6 weeks old, so really we never get below a flock of birds wanting it to be about 70 degrees Fahrenheit. That's basically the temperature range that we're going to run start to finish with our birds' preferences. They're going to want 95 degrees Fahrenheit on day one. A week later, they're going to want it 90 degrees Fahrenheit. A week later, 85 degrees Fahrenheit. And it's going to decrease by 5 degrees Fahrenheit each week. But then, since they're 6 weeks old, when we take them to processing for meat production, if we get to a point where they want it around 65 degrees, 70 degrees Fahrenheit, that's usually where production is ending. That's what we work with. We don't really even use a thermometer to monitor that temperature, we go totally off the bird's behavior. So if you follow this flock from start to finish, you'll get to hear discussion on that. So shelter is critical, and you probably need to set up some kind of brooder space that confines the birds to an area where you can influence the ambient temperature. And with them, I gave you those temperature ranges. They really want it right there. They don't want it warmer. They don't want it cooler. They want what they want when they want it in terms of ambient temperature. So shelter is very important. Start with a good, secure shelter to raise your birds in. And then prepare the floor. We like to see a fluffy layer of pine shavings down on the floor. There are alternatives to that you could use, but that works really well for us. We also want to make sure that we have our supplies on hand that our birds need before our birds ever move in. So we've got actually 1 gallon waters here. So that's really how they fit together. But when you utilize them, you turn them upside down to fill them, and then you screw the base on there, and then you can flip the water over. And this holds about 1 gallon. We have, I believe, about 16 of those. Our goal would be to use about 8 of them at a time, and then have 8 of them filled, ready to swap in as they empty the ones that are already in the pen. We have our feeders ready. These also have flip top lids that can attach to them here at these hinged points, but we don't start with those. We just use the trays. So we've basically got the space ready for the birds, with the final touch of having the heat lamps hanging. Basically, it doesn't matter what time of year it is. We generally use heat lamps some of the time with every flock. So as we're recording this, this is the height of summer. Yes, we have super hot days, but our nights get down to maybe 60 degrees Fahrenheit. Those birds are going to be chilly in the first week with conditions at 60 degrees Fahrenheit. So we may use the heat lamp some for that. They're in place. We've tested them. We know they work. We know the bulbs are good, so they're there if we need them. The pieces of scrap wood on the floor are to set waters on, and then we will probably add maybe some pieces of scrap wood to set feeders on. That with the waters just kind of helps keep fewer shavings from being kicked into the waters by the birds. You can see hanging on the wall we have some fans. We may need to actually use those with summer flocks as well. Another thing I want to point out, we have a piece of wood here that's blocked out this corner, a piece of wood there that's blocked out that corner, and we've done a big corner block back in that end. So to start 225 birds, this is going to be a good amount of space for them. They're going to have lots of room to spread out, but it's also going to keep them close to where the resources of targeted warmth, if we need it, and food and water are at. We want to keep their footprint relatively small when we're in the very beginning stages of raising them. And in the back corner, you can see we've got some other supplies. Those are waters that you can see. We'll swap the birds into those waters probably between 10 days and 14 days of age. There's the silver metal feeders, same there. We'll swap the birds into those feeders around 10 to 14 days of age. And we're going to make some top quality chicken here. So thanks for joining us, y'all. Got a few more tips here at the end. Stick with me. Tanner's living his best life. He loves the chicken barn. Great helper. We also have Gus, the teddy bear dog, running around here somewhere. So while we're raising this flock, we'll get them on camera together and introduce y'all to Gus. I'm Melissa, right here at Twin Oaks Family Farm in Southeast Ohio. My family's family of 5, age ranges like 18 to 49. We produce top quality poultry right here at our little home place in Southeast Ohio. This is actually the final year that we're going to be doing that. We have the flock coming in less than 24 hours to go, and then 1 flock after that. We will be done producing poultry by October 20th, 2025. This is July 22nd, 2025 as we're recording this. I appreciate y'all joining me. If you're interested in raising meat chickens, I especially hope you'll continue to join us as we raise this flock. that we're starting on July 23rd, 2025. It's going to be great watching them grow and seeing how top quality poultry is actually produced and can be produced on a small scale. We do this on scales of like 200, 300, or 400 birds at a time. You can scale this down to like 25 or 50 birds at a time and produce poultry just for your own household if you want to. We actually direct market ours to clients in our local area, and it has been really awesome producing excellent food that has been enjoyed in other people's homes here throughout our community, in our county, and the next county over. We're very, very blessed to have been able to do all of this work that it takes to produce poultry, and we really value the experience that we've gained from it. So we encourage y'all, if it is something you want to do for your own household, it is doable, and it is the best chicken you will ever have in your life. So last thing I want to tell y'all, if you are starting meat birds, a great tip for a point of reference to go by. Sometimes it's confusing. What do we feed them? How much do we feed them? How do we prepare for that? We definitely suggest have all your feed or most of your feed on hand, on site, before you start your birds, if that's at all possible. Now, in this instance, we have about half of the feed that we're going to need for this flock on site, but we are confident that we're going to be able to have the rest of it here during production when we need it without any waiting. That's why we recommend, if you can figure out how much feed your birds are going to need, try to have it all on site before you even start your birds, because you don't want to get halfway through raising these birds and have some kind of catastrophe where you aren't able to get feed, because they do need high protein, quality, complete feed. What we recommend feeding is Kalmbach 22% start to finish meat bird with the Amprolium ingredient in it. If you have any questions about that, please put it down in the comments. The other thing that is critical that we suggest to people, if they're going to get started in meat birds, have the end in mind before you start. Know how you're going to finish before you begin. What I mean by that is, what's your plan for butchering and processing the birds? If you want to do it yourself, be prepared to do that when the birds are about 6 weeks old. If you choose to let the birds go a little longer, so be it. You could raise them out to 7 weeks, 8 weeks old if you want to. Our preference is to never ever go past 42 days, past 6 weeks of age with them. They're finished by then and they are ready for poultry production by then. But have yourself ready, especially if you plan to butcher them yourselves. Have the supplies, have some research done, have some knowledge of what you're doing, enlist some help ahead of time if you think you're going to need some extra hands to help you, but start with the end in mind. Be ready by the time they're 6 weeks old, and if for some reason, for your preference, the birds are smaller than you want, you could always let them go another week or two, but process the birds when they're finished. Don't let them just go on indefinitely, because these kinds of birds are hybrids that are produced by selective breeding, selectively bred to grow rapidly, finish quickly. And if you don't want to do it yourself, that's cool too. There are poultry processors, but they book up fast. So that is the same recommendation there. Even if you're going to sub it out to professional processors, get a hold of them. Ideally, before you get your birds, have your processing date set up. And then that's why it's great to know, hey, these birds are done in 6 weeks, because you can take your processing date and look at a calendar. You can't count yourself back 6 weeks. That's the hatch date that ideally you want for your birds. So then you could actually order them from a processor, or see if you can work with a farm supply store to have birds that would hatch on that date. If you're getting birds though, keep in mind, you're going to probably have to get a certain quantity of birds in order to get a hatching date, or to work with a hatchery, and even to work with a processor. Sometimes they have minimums. They may require 25 or 50 bird minimum to even work with them, so keep those things in mind. But these Cornish Rock Cross meat chickens are the ultimate meat production chickens, because that selective breeding and that hybridization of chicken traits prioritizes efficient feed to meat conversion in Cornish Rock Cross meat chickens, and that's what makes them be able to grow rapidly and finish quickly. Nothing nefarious about it. It's not done in a lab. It's selective breeding, the same way that dogs that are hypoallergenic that don't shed, those dogs are produced by selective breeding, prioritizing traits from parents that you want to see in the offspring. And that's how the Cornish Rock Cross meat chickens are produced. Albeit in Cornish Rock Cross meat chickens, it's not necessarily a first generation offspring. There's multiple generations of selective breeding to get to what we know as the Cornish Rock Cross meat chickens. So, hey, thanks for joining me. If you want to raise meat chickens, we've learned a lot about it, raising thousands of birds. Anything we can share, we're happy to do so. Put it in comments if you got a question. And we're going to do videos on this flock starting July 23rd, 2025 every day. So check it out if you want to follow a flock from start to finish and see how real good chicken is made. It comes from real chickens, nowhere else. God bless y'all.